That's not very interesting. Our responsibility is that the more these things make sense, the more they arise in us, the more it compels us to realize that we are part of an interconnected family, interconnected quality, and that human consciousness is not grown because one body has human consciousness, but every body is growing human consciousness. And this is really what she insists upon, because as we flow down, we start to realize, and this helps a lot with psychology, because many people feel, oh, my despair, my angst, my pain, my anger. And when we realize that it is not my anything, these are enormous energetic qualities of consciousness that animate and flow through every human being, which is why when people advertise and say, have you felt anxious? Have you felt lonely? Have you felt depressed? Any human being would say, yes, of course, we're human. That's what it means to be human. You have all of these forces and energies flowing through you. What we are here to do is to learn to navigate these energies. It would be idiotic for a sailor to be out at sea and pounding his fist and thinking it was some relationship with his mother that the storm came up on the horizon. It is the storm. It is nothing to do with his mother. Learn to navigate. And this is where I really feel that this is our ancientness talking to us, to move past the psychological impediments of the small room of our own sets of this is who and what I am. This is who and what we are, and we all go through it. We all are Icarus. We all fall from our false assumptions. We all feel our life force being drawn out of us because we didn't do it right. But what did we do when that happened? We said, regroup, rethink, go back to the drawing board. This doesn't work. That's the important thing. That it's not the negative. People say, oh, what are the negative and positive archetypes? Or what's evil and what's good? None of them are good. None of them are bad. All of them have this story, which is saying you are being asked continuously to transform your assumptions. And as we do, as we see ourselves as being of this divine light that falls into the waters of consciousness and possibility, that mediates through the mineral, the vegetable, and we see here the egg with the embryo within it. This is really the ovum of the human race. That the human race fell into time and consciousness as an artist of consciousness, basically saying we can't know anything from the outside, and the only way we're going to make sense of this little planet parked out on the middle of nowhere is we'll have to become it. You cannot know, and that's with the Zen in painting. It's great that they say you cannot know an object unless you become the object. The same thing with these ideas. People that represent these ideas are simply giving a reflection of what they assume. What these are, in truth, and meant to be, is we enter them in not knowing. This comes from me not through having known where I was going and illustrating what I thought, but absolutely the opposite. Having no idea where I was going and no determination of what I was to illustrate, other than the seed ideas that I wanted to allow to emerge out of the crucible of my inner creative and imaginative willingness to explore, and not even to have the anticipation. I'm astounded that I have 22 beautiful drawings and a book, because that was never my intention. I backed into that, and it really was the outcome of the ideas moving upon me. And this is why we start to see the journey here of the writing of this serpent of evolution, and he's pointing upward. And you can see here's the wolf. Now the wolf really having to do with the problem of our own deepest fears and inhibitions. And as we come into the realization that we are not dealing with what is conscious within ourselves, but that the wolf, the territorial, the dangerous aspects of the psyche are really the hidden qualities of consciousness, is saying you are not that. You are not capable of that. Be afraid. Be very, because all of those are, in terms of consciousness, dwellers, or they are resistance factors that are saying, look, I'd love to let you run, but until you realize that there's a sheer cliff, the direction you're running, and you should slow down and navigate that cliff, I'm not going to let you move beyond your own ratio of assumption. So in other words, all of the dealing with the inward darkness cannot be resolved except that we ultimately adopt this inner realization that only myself, by going and confronting energetically, by assimilating these energies that I've divorced from myself, can I gather back my qualities of holiness. And this is where a lot of the examination of the qualities of what do we resent, what do we hate, what do we fear come into play, because what we're doing is gathering back the innocence of self, this inward sense that, okay, I am worldly, I understand the nature of the world, the difficulty of the world, but I am not defined by that difficulty. This is not who I am. This is the conditions of the weather through which I am navigating. What I am is an entity, an ancient entity that in innocence asked questions about what does it mean to be human? What does it mean to individuate? What does it mean to become an artist of consciousness? When I perceive that, then the responsibility not of the blaming the world, but the realization that I am the seed returns to us. And as you can see here then, Icarus is back within the womb of infinite possibilities and realizing that the seed direction now he is moving, because he has gone through the journey of self-undoing, is to awaken and move toward the knowledge of, as we can see here, the sun, Icarus is embracing his bride, or the sun and moon are now emerging, because he has not abandoned the inner for the outer. He has not associated the above, differentiated it from the below. He has actually journeyed through the difficulty and darkness of the inner qualities of being. And therefore you can see it's pointing down toward the eyes of the moon. And what this is saying is that when the moon's eyes are closed, this is a sensual journey. This is dark power. She can enslave, she can obsess, and she can kill, because her motive is to reanimate within the individual the realization that they contain the quality of the whole. They are a microcosm of the macrocosm, a microprosopos of the macroprosopos. In other words, a universe in miniature, or the lesser countenance of the greater countenance. And we would, in modern parlance, call this, we realize that we are a hologram. When you realize that, you realize everyone is an aspect of the hologram. So it becomes very hard to reject any aspect of the hologram, because it is you. And that is where then we start to open up to this journey into the flowering of the day of the coming sun. But here we have the moon in full, illuminated as an eclipse by the sun. And that's very important, because this will get into the alchemical wedding of the sun and the moon. If we think about the moon as our ancient corporeal nature, as a matter of fact, what's attributed to her is corporeal intelligence. And what this is telling us is that our corporeal intelligence is that which knows how to heal itself, how to digest food, how to turn one quality of condition into another, to animate, sustain us. And this is something that's evolved, again, over billions of years. And this is not something that evolved over billions of years absent or abstracted from ourselves, but we are the embodiment of this billions of years. And therefore, like the sun and the moon, what we realize in the next image is that the sun, and this is why solar wisdom cannot work, why religion cannot bring about the third birth. It can only be brought about through the unique experience of the individual, because what this tells us is that the inner sun, the true sun, is that which mediates, truly emanates into the receptivity of the full moon. So the two become one. We don't, I remember having a period of time where I thought that the ideas trying to inhabit me were so much larger than my brain that they couldn't fit. And so I'd get the little trail of the end of it or the beginning of it. And finally I realized that a lot of what I had been doing was my intelligence was partitioned. And then I realized, like a dancer in music, you have to give yourself to the energy of the fullness of a thought and experience. And in that, you begin to trust your imaginative and creative impulses, not because they're the ones that have figured it out and are so smart and clever and can be the smartest kid in the room, but because actually they're creating a way for you to be informed by other qualities that aren't stated, aren't literal, aren't factual,